Hello and welcome to today's video. I'm going to show you how to draw this, so please stay tuned and enjoy the ride. So to start out, you'll want to open a canvas in Procreate, and I'm not too picky on what size you do because you're learning today. So go ahead and start by turning your background to this darker brown color. If you can't get this exact color, please get something close to it. And you're going to then open up your brushes tab and you're going to choose monoline. I choose monoline because it's really good for doing just a big, bold, thick line. And I'm going to draw that about midways across my screen. You're going to draw the line through it, and then you're going to hold, allowing Procreate to straighten it. Then what you're going to do next is you're going to make another layer. And this layer, you're going to turn to a clipping mask. So make sure that little arrow appears and is pointing down at your layer to make sure that that clipping mask is engaged. We are going to go into the materials tab and you're going to choose the brush Blackwood because this is how we're going to get our marble effect. So we're going to turn the size up way big and we're just going to drag that on our layer that we applied our clipping mask to. We are only going to do one pass because one pass is all that's necessary. And then next, we're going to start another layer and grab our soft brush from the airbrush tab. And I'll say that again, our soft brush from the airbrush tab. Then we're going to go and we're going to lay in some shadow using a darker gray color. You can use black as long as you're being gentle with how hard you press to get that gradient. So we're going to gently go through from the outer edges and working up at the top because we want that to be the darkest layer because that is where our lights are going to be above. So just keep working that in. And as you can see, I worked from a light gray to my darkest color. And then I'm also putting that up in my background here on a different layer. So make sure that what you're doing now is on a different layer than your clipping mask was. And I'm putting my darkest colors in the outer edges and my lightest color in the middle because this is where our lights are going to sit and they will be illuminating where this is. So it will be our lightest area. Now that I'm done with that, we're going to grab monoline again and we are going to open up a new layer. We're going to set our color wheel to green because this is the color our first light will be. And in fact, all our lights will be green at first, leading into this next step. So you're gonna wanna make that first light layer green and you're going to want to duplicate it 4 times. Then you're going to take your selection tool, which is that little arrow, and you're going to want to drag it and not resize it. I had a little bit of a whoopsie day here for a second, but you're gonna wanna drag it and take your 4 duplicates and you're going to want to put them in different spaces. And I just kept playing around until I picked the right one and stopped resizing it and put it in the 4 different spaces. Okay? And then once you do that, you're going to want to take that green anchor point at the top and you're going to want to put them in different sides so that they have different angles and some variety, like so. And then we're going to want to finalize the resting place, and then we're going to go and choose our red color, and we're going to choose different layers, making sure that we're on the right ones or else we'll color our whole background red like I'm just about to do. Just like that. So you want to make sure you have the right layer selected. You can do that in this stage by doing what I'm doing, where you make it so it's invisible, denoting that that's that layer. So I went and I dragged the red on that other layer, And now that I'm happy with all the base tones I have, I went through and I looked at everything and I made sure I was happy, because this next part is pretty final. We're going to go through and we're going to make them different heights. And I did this kind of staggered, in a variety of ways, like a Christmas light should be. So we have our different positions, we have our different heights. They're looking very interesting. So I was pretty happy with this at this point. You can see I still played with it a little bit more. Now I created a layer below my lights, because this is where we're going to put our string. So again, we're going to choose monoline. Going to go to black, and we're going to take that size way down because we don't want a chunky light string. So go and make a nice curly Q string and just start putting it below your lights. And you can do this any way you want. You don't have to do it exactly how I'm doing it. Just make sure that's on its own layer, because that part will be really important and it'll come later. And make sure that it is attaching to the tops of your lights, because otherwise they're gonna look like they're just floating in the air. I was pretty content with this, so I went back to my lights and I started merging them down so they're all on the same layer. Again, this is pretty important, because otherwise when we go into this next step, there's going to be a lot more work for you to do. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm pretty lazy, so I like to make a minimal amount of work for myself. And this is a beginner's lesson after all. So now that they're all on their own layer, merged together, you're going to go through and you're going to choose your airbrush tool. We're going to switch from monoline, not the tool for this. Or go to your airbrushes tab, choose the airbrush tool, soft airbrush, and start making the outer edges of these lights darker, like I'm doing here. Leave the top point the lightest, and just make sure that you get it darker on those edges. And make sure that each of these new layers you're making are clipping masks. So I have the bottom layer, clipping mask for my shadow, another one on top of that I just made, and this is for my light source. So as you can see, I switched to white, and I'm going, and I am just grazing the top of that. But I'm not going to stop there. I'm going to switch this layer into a mask to vivid light, so that it turns into the color below, but still holds the luminance that I just put in. Now I'm going to put a layer above that, and this is where I'm going to put even more highlights, because again, these are lights. They're pretty bright. So I'm choosing a pin light here, and I'm going through making my pin light, making additional light sources around where I like to imagine the light is the brightest. That's the point of the pin light, is to make the point in which our lights are the brightest. So as you can see, I'm doing that at each of the tips of these lights, so that they're just as bright as possible. So keep going through on each light, and as you can see, this is why I said to make them all merge into the same layer, because otherwise I would have 4 different layers now of 4 different clipping masks, and we just don't want that. Once you have your pin light established and you have some more highlights that you're working in, you can get a little more expressive with your lights, and I started going through with an even smaller brush, and I was just being a little more gestured with it and creative, and just letting my imagination get the best of me. So just when you're doing this, have fun, and as long as it's in a sensible way and your light sources are not making nonsense, you can be pretty creative with this part. The smaller brush is more so just to establish some variety after you have a good solid pin light established. Once you have some of these bases established, you can be more creative. So now I'm making a layer below my lights. I'm going in with a very light green, and I'm going behind so that they're illuminated. and to the color that they're established with, going through with a red and going behind my red lights and doing the same thing. Then I'm going a step further and getting a white and going behind all of them so they are as bright as possible behind. And as you can see, this made a huge difference. Now I'm going and I'm making a layer below everything, and I'm setting it to black because in real life these lights would be, even though they're lights, they'd be casting some sort of shadow on the ground above where they are. So go on your marble floor, or marble, I guess a countertop, marble countertop, and make it so these lights have something they're sitting on or sitting above. Now this next part is kind of hard to tell what I'm doing, but I went above my layer with the cord, and I went through and I started to make a clipping mask above it, and now I'm illuminating parts of my cord. So just really pay attention here and you can see what's happening. So I'm illuminating parts of my cord that are closest to my lights, and I'm zooming in here so you can see, and letting the parts that are away from my lights remain black and dark. It's a small change, but it's pretty profound. Now as a final touch, we're almost done here, so bear with me. We're going below all our layers, even layer 1, and we're going to go to our materials, our elements tab, and we're going to choose a very light red, and we're going to choose the flame option, and we're going to go through and just create a little bit of illuminating light behind our lights. And as you can see, subtle change, but still just as profound. I hope this helps somebody, and I hope you have a great day. Bye!